The crack in the ice. The year was 2024, and the climate monitoring team stationed at Polaris Outpost had just picked up strange seismic activity about 12 miles from base camp. It wasn't an earthquake, it was something deeper. The ice didn't shake. It pulsed a doctor. Elaine Traeger, a geologist with over 15 years of polar fieldwork, led the small scouting party of 4 as they reached the coordinates. What they found defied reason. A narrow crack in the ice stretching over 100 meters long, maybe 2 meters wide but unfathomably deep, and no bottom could be seen. Even radar couldn't map it. It was as if the Earth itself had been sliced open by a blade. They set up recording equipment and dropped a microphone attached to a long cable down the fissure. The cable extended over 3,000 meters before suddenly going limp. And then came the sound of a hum, low, primal, almost like a voice, not quite human, but not completely alien either. It spoke no words, but everyone heard the same thing in their minds. Come closer. Elaine leaned over the edge to listen more carefully. As if hypnotized, the others shouted, told her to step back, but she didn't respond. And then, in one blink, she was gone. No scream, no false sound, just silence. They reported it immediately, but when the recovery team arrived the next morning, the crack was gone, sealed as if it had never been there. All that remained was the recorder, still playing the same haunting hum. The last thing it captured before going silent was a faint whisper. She's here now. The frozen eyes. A week after Dr. Traeger's disappearance, a secondary exploration crew was deployed to investigate unusual magnetic anomalies beneath the Filchner ice shelf. The signals were erratic bursts of energy too organized to be natural, yet far too ancient for any known technology. The Antarctic Research Coalition, ARC, authorized a drone expedition into a recently discovered vertical ice cavern, now dubbed Chamber Z. The drone, equipped with thermal imaging and high-resolution cameras, was lowered through a shaft that had mysteriously appeared near the anomaly site. The shaft descended nearly 700 meters before opening into a vast underground hollow, lit only by the drone's LED lights. Ice walls towered around the machine, jagged and oddly symmetrical as if carved, not formed as the drone hovered forward. Its feed flickered, then it stabilized, and everyone watching the monitor went silent. Lining the translucent walls were faces, hundreds of them. Human faces, eyes wide open, mouths frozen and silent. Screams. Some looked recent, their features intact. Others seemed older, partially fused with the ice like grotesque fossils. There was something unnatural in their expressions. Not just fear, but awareness, like they had seen something beyond human comprehension. Dr. Campos, the AI analyst reviewing the drone data, attempted to run facial recognition. The results came back chilling. One of the frozen faces matched a British explorer who had gone missing in 1913. Another matched a missing Russian biologist from 1986. There were no signs of frostbite or decay, just stillness. But the most horrifying discovery came when the drone turned a corner and captured something impossible. The frozen face of Dr. Elaine Traeger, the geologist who had vanished only 7 days prior. Her eyes were wide open, but unlike the others, she blinked. The feed went black. When they retrieved the drone an hour later, it was intact, but all its internal memory had been wiped. Only one file remained. A 3-second clip. It was of Elaine's face, and in it, she whispered 3 words. Don't look away. The Lost Expedition Signal. In 1958, the Franklin 7 Antarctic expedition disappeared without a trace, led by Colonel Adrian Prescott. The team of 12 was tasked with exploring an uncharted sector near the Queen Maud Land region. Their final radio transmission was a simple log update. Coordinates reached, setting up camp. After that -no distress signal. No wreckage, just silence. For decades, they were thought to have been lost to the elements. Until now, in early 2025, a routine satellite scan picked up a signal one emitted in the same Morse code format used in the 1950s. The source came from beneath the very ice shelf where Franklin 7 vanished. It repeated endlessly. Every 11 minutes. They're not dead. They're watching. ARC researchers triangulated the signal to a glacial ridge known as Hollow Crest. A small communications team was deployed, carrying equipment designed to decode and trace the exact location of the beacon. As they dug into the ice, the signal grew stronger and distorted. Background static began to sound like whispers, first random then rhythmic, like breathing. After 26 hours of digging, they found it. An old, rusted radio transmitter, still glowing faintly, buried under 30 meters of ice. It bore the insignia of Franklin. 7 next to it, frozen in a seated position, was a man's corpse still wearing a 1950s ARC uniform. His eyes were wide open, lips parted as if about to speak. But hair-race what chilled the entire ARC staff to the bone. The man wasn't Colonel Prescott or anyone on the original manifest. His identity matched Dr. Michael Rainier, a technician assigned to the current ARC team who was supposedly back at base camped out alive. Only he wasn't. The real Dr. Rainier was found in his bunk the same night, eyes glazed over, catatonic. When medics tried to rouse him, he muttered a single phrase. "They're stuck in time, but they remember us." In the following days, the signal stopped broadcasting, but something else started. Radio devices across the outpost began picking up faint voices, whispering names of ARC staff who hadn't even been born when Franklin 7 disappeared. Names that slowly began vanishing from the base one by one. The Bleeding Glacier. They called it Blood Falls. Nestled at the edge of the Taylor Glacier, it was once thought to be a rare natural phenomenon, a harmless outflow of iron-rich salt water, oxidizing into a deep crimson as it met the air. But in March 2025, ARC geochemist Dr. Lars Wyman noticed something wrong. The flow had changed. It no longer seeped, it pulsed. They asked if the glacier itself had a heartbeat. Satellite images revealed something even stranger. The red stain was growing outward, carving unnatural patterns into the ice, resembling veins, stretching for miles. The scientific team dubbed it a curiosity. The locals, the few native Antarcticans who had long worked as porters and mechanics, had another word for it. Yukurik. Translation: the glacier that weeps for the dead. Dr. Wyman and his assistant Maya drilled into the glacier to take fresh samples. As the borehole deepened, the pressure in the ice shot the red fluid upward, spraying the interior of the tent. Maya screamed. The water was warm, and when examined under the microscope later, it revealed something horrifying. Human blood cells with intact nuclei. Human, living blood. Within the next 48 hours, members of the crew began to fall ill. Nightmares plagued them. They spoke in their sleep, whispering things like she's inside the walls and the red tide is calling. Point one technician, Tomas Alvarez, was found standing barefoot outside his tent at 3:12 a.m., eyes rolled back, whispering to the glacier. Then came the footprints. Bare human footprints began appearing in the snow around the research camp despite sub-zero temperatures and no missing personnel. They started at the edge of the glacier and ended at the tents. Always one set, always wet, always red. Maya, now isolated due to fever and paranoia, scribbled a message across the inside of her tent before disappearing. It's not melting, it's bleeding, and it wants more. She was never found. The glacier's pulse continues, and now, even from satellite images, the blood seems to spell something on the ice, something shaped like a word. No one dares translate it. The ice scream. They called it the Banshee Hour. It began innocently at first, just a single scream, faint and far away, echoing across the Antarctic plains at precisely 3:33 a.m. Every single night. The scream wasn't human. Not exactly that it carried something primal in its pitch-like agony filtered through layers of time and ice. The kind of sound that bypassed logic and drilled straight into the animal part of your brain. Researchers described it as a sound you don't hear, but feel in your teeth. Polaris outpost. The screams were dismissed as shifting, ice or Arctic wind, until one of the interns, a young linguist named Harriet Moss, decided to record and analyze the sound. She ran the scream through spectrum analysis and voice pattern software, searching for clues. What she found horrified her. There was language embedded in the scream, slowed down 400 times. The waveform translated into a phrase, a voice speaking Old Norse, a language dead for over 1,000 years. The translation chilled her blood. The ice remembers your warmth. That same night, Harriet was found outside the communication dome, barefoot in the snow, staring into the white void. She had clawed her ears bloody. When medics approached, she whispered, "It's not just a scream. It's a doorbell." And the door had been opened. The next few nights, the screams got closer, no longer distant echoes, but howls right outside the tents. On the sixth night, surveillance footage showed shadows circling the camp. They weren't animals. Too tall, too smooth that no visible limbs, just shapes moving with purpose. One camera caught a clear shot. A figure standing at the camp's edge, mouth stretched open in a permanent, silent scream. Its eyes were frozen solid, but leaking a black liquid that sizzled in the snow. By the end of the week, 3 researchers were missing. Their tents unzipped from the inside, their gear untouched. The only clue, trails in the snow, leading to nowhere. When ARC tried to evacuate the site, radio channels went dead. Then came one last scream, this time from inside the communications room, not over the radio, not outside from the walls. The tunnel below Station 12. Station 12 had been decommissioned for over 3 decades. Built in 1973 during the Cold War, it served as a classified Soviet research outpost, its original purpose lost to history. Most assumed it was a weather station, but the Russians never clarified. And when the last message sent from Station 12 in 1986 simply read, "We found the gate," it was quietly shut down, sealed, and erased from maps. Until 2025, when a glacial shift exposed the structure, once more its rusted towers protruding from the ice like the bones of some ancient creature. ARC sent a team to investigate, partly out of scientific curiosity, partly because thermal scans showed an inexplicable heat source beneath the base. In Antarctica. That shouldn't be possible. Inside Station 12, everything was eerily preserved. Soviet journals lay frozen on desks, coffee mugs fused to counters by decades of frost, but no bodies, no signs of struggle. Just a cold, oppressive silence. Then they found the hatch in the lowest sublevel of the station behind a steel door marked Abrednovanet, no return. Was a metal spiral staircase descending into pitch black. The bottom lay a tunnel too smooth, too geometrically perfect to be man-made, that it wasn't reinforced or carved, that it looked grown. The walls pulsed faintly, like a sleeping vein, and the temperature, warm, almost humid as they walked deeper. The radio signals began to fail. The air grew thicker. One researcher, Dima Orlov, collapsed mid-step and began convulsing. He mumbled in an unknown language before going limp. His last words were transcribed by the team's medic. "I can see what they see, that I can feel what they felt." The tunnel dreams. The end of the passage stood a door, smooth black metal, humming slightly, as if breathing. The team argued about opening it. Ultimately, 3 entered while the rest remained behind to document. Exactly 11 minutes later, the screams started. But they didn't come from the tunnel, they came from everywhere. The ice above, the pipes, even the team's own throats, as if some force had taken over their vocal cords. Cameras caught the 3 researchers exiting the door, eyes white, skin steaming. One of them was missing her tongue. Another began repeating numbers in a child's voice. And then, the metal door slowly closed itself. The tunnel began collapsing behind them, but not from structural failure, from something chasing them, something unseen, that moved without sound but shook the walls like a growl made flesh. Back at the surface, as the survivors fled, Station 12 began to sink into the ice as if swallowed whole. The last radio log from the medic who escaped read only one thing: "The gate is not behind us anymore, it's below all of us now." The silent penguin march. It started with a single penguin. A lone emperor penguin wandered into Ark Outpost Delta. Unusual, but not unheard of. What was strange was its silence. Emperor penguins are known to vocalize constantly, especially when distressed. But this one that didn't make a sound, it just stood there, watching. The researchers assumed it was injured, maybe disoriented. But when they tried to examine it, it resisted violently. It stared directly at one of the biologists, Dr. Keegan, for over an hour without blinking. Then, without warning, it turned and walked away into the white. The next morning, more arrived, dozens, hundreds. That'd be by the end of the week. Over 4,000 penguins surrounded the outpost, standing perfectly still, at no movement and no sound, their beady eyes fixed on the camp like silent sentinels. Drones recorded time-lapse of the birds standing motionless for 12 hours straight, something no known penguin species should be capable of. Then, on the 7th night, at 2:00 a.m., the penguins began to march, not in their usual waddle, but in complete synchrony, step for step, shoulder to shoulder, toward the ice cliffs to the west, and one by one they jumped. No hesitation, no panic. They simply walked off the edge into the abyss below. The entire colony, gone. The research team, stunned and disturbed, descended the following day into the crevasse to investigate. What they found at the bottom shook them to the core. There were no bodies, no blood, no feathers, just smooth ice and scorch marks. The Dr. Keegan, obsessed with answers, ran brain scans on the few penguins they had previously tagged and sampled. What she discovered was impossible. Each bird had a perfectly symmetrical burn mark deep inside their brain. Same shape, same location, like something had rewired them simultaneously. The following week, Dr. Keegan disappeared. Her journal was found open, a single page marked with a final entry. They weren't marching to their deaths, they were going home. Her GPS tag, last pinged out from 300 meters below. The ice shelf, near the cliff, near the source. The Black Ice Man. The first sighting came during a solar flare. Ark Base Vega was monitoring geomagnetic disturbances when their external motion sensors detected movement on the southern perimeter. The cameras flickered and glitch static overwhelmed the feeds for several seconds. When the image returned, there he was, that a tall, thin figure standing motionless on the ice. Not dressed, not human, that he seemed to be made of black ice, a translucent, shimmering form that bent the moonlight in impossible ways. Not no facial features, that no limbs, just a humanoid silhouette that flickered at the edges, as if its shape could barely hold itself together. Security teams rushed out with floodlights and thermal scopes, but by the time they arrived, he was gone. The next night, he returned, but closer, that a technician claimed to have seen him standing just beyond the generator shed, staring through the snowstorm. No tracks led to him. None led away. And the next morning, the technician was found unresponsive in his bunk, clutching a chunk of black ice. His hands were fused to it. The ice wouldn't melt, not under flame, not under acid, not even in boiling water. When examined under a microscope, it revealed fractal patterns that resembled fingerprints, except they moved, shifting every few seconds like they were alive. More sightings followed, always during periods of solar activity, always closer to camp. Then, the claw marks began appearing, deep, unnatural gouges carved into the aluminum walls of sleeping pods and equipment lockers. Whatever made them hadn't used a tool that had sliced through hardened steel as if it were paper point. One night, a full team vanished. All that remained were their tents unzipped, neatly arranged, and an audio recorder placed precisely in the center. The tape played 33 minutes of silence, then a single sound, crunching snow, followed by a deep, inhuman breath. And then, a whisper, a voice that seemed to echo inside the listener's skull. "You shaped me out from shadow and light, and now I've remembered your names." The solar flare ended that week. So did the sightings. But every year since, when the auroras flare brightest over the station, the black ice returns to the surface, melting the snow around it, waiting. The fossil that breathed. It was supposed to be a routine excavation. Arc paleobiologist Dr. Miriam Holt had been drilling into a 90,000-year-old ice core near Mount Erebus when her team uncovered something wrong. Embedded 15 meters below the surface was a structure, a body unlike anything they'd ever cataloged. Roughly 3 meters long, serpentine and coiled. Its surface was covered in ridged plates, .6 limb-like protrusions jutted from its sides, ending in hooked talons. Its head, or what resembled one, was eyeless, with a circular mouth lined with concentric rows of calcified teeth. But the strangest thing, it was fossilized and warm to the touch. Dr. Holt ordered the creature's immediate extraction. They placed it in the cryolab for study, encased in a block of reinforced ice. Scans showed it had no known genetic markers. It wasn't fish. It wasn't reptile. It wasn't anything from Earth's documented evolutionary tree. That night, motion detectors went off in the LABAT first. They blamed rodents. But there were no rodents in Antarctica. The footage showed the lights flickering, followed by a low hissing sound like pressurized steam escaping. The camera cut out just as the fossil shifted. Yes, shifted. The ice had melted. Not completely, just enough to allow movement, enough for something inside it to twitch. Some said it was thermal expansion. Others, like Dr. Holt, weren't convinced that, so she stayed the night in the lab, alone. The next morning, they found her notes, scribbled hastily, barely legible, lines like, "It's dreaming that I saw the ocean in its mind. It remembers drowning. It wasn't dead, just paused. Her body was never recovered. The creature, gone. No broken glass. No trailed. No breach alarms. Just an empty containment chamber and a single fingerprint on the inside of the glass, large and human, and pressed from within. Over the next 48 hours, all electronic equipment in a 5-kilometer radius malfunctioned. Compass needles spun wildly. Radios emitted wet, sloshing sounds, as if broadcasting from beneath water. Then, just as suddenly, everything returned to normal, except for one thing deep in the ice, several miles from the original dig site. A thermal scan showed a new tunnel perfectly round, freshly carved, leading down, and at the very bottom, a faint, rhythmic pulse, like something breathing, waiting. The final transmission. By mid-2025, ARC's research stations across Antarctica were on high alert. Strange phenomena had become the norm: disappearances, unexplained signals, and sightings defying logic. Then came the transmission. IT started as a garbled burst on all radio frequencies, static and noise that made even the most advanced decoders falter. But buried within the interference was a clear, human voice. IT was distorted, strained, as if transmitted through miles of ice and time itself. The message repeated again and again. They're waking up, and they're not happy. The source was traced beneath the Ross ice shelf, inside a vast, labyrinthine cavern system never before mapped. Thermal imaging revealed hundreds of moving heat signatures, too organized to be animals, too numerous to be human. A specialized ARC team was deployed. Operation Deep Silence. They descended through a borehole, their lights swallowed by darkness. Inside the caverns, the air was thick with an unidentifiable scent, metallic, wet, and decay. The walls pulsed softly, echoing faint whispers in every direction. The deeper they went, the more erratic their instruments became. Compasses spun wildly. Radios screamed in feedback. Then came the creatures. They weren't human, not anymore. Shadows with translucent skin, glowing eyes, and elongated limbs that twisted in unnatural angles. Some slithered along the walls. Others hovered with silent menace. The team's last video log was recovered weeks later. IT showed panic, disorientation, and finally silence. The final frames captured a member whispering, "They remember us, and they want the surface back." No further communication came from Operation Deep Silence. Weeks after the disappearance, a lone transmission echoed over the ARC frequencies. The ICE.is breaking. The world will know what lies beneath. Prepare. And then silence. The end. Or is it? Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this chilling journey beneath Antarctica, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more spine-tingling stories. Would love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and tell us which story scared you the most or what mysterious place you want us to explore next. Your support means everything and helps us keep creating. Stay curious, stay safe, and see you in the next video.